Hi, fourth grade. Welcome to our first lesson of our new Writers Workshop unit. Yesterday you watched an intro video to the project, but today is the official launch of our new writing unit. So, you know that our unit is called Bringing History to Life. And as I start, I want to share this quote from a woman named Lucille Clifton, who I've put a picture of here. She once said, "We cannot create what we cannot imagine." And in the same way, as we think about our books, we can't really create anything unless we really picture what our book is going to look like. So, as you know, you're writing informational historical books. So the first thing we need to do is have a topic in mind. Now, a topic is something that you feel really excited about and know some things about and want to tell others. So as you guys know, your choices for topics were Gold Rush, California missions, Mexican-American War, and the Pony Express. And if you remember from yesterday, I decided that I want to write about the Gold Rush. Now, the reason I chose the Gold Rush is because of all these topics. Even though California missions is something we were recently talking about in class, the Gold Rush is what gets me really excited. If you're in my class, you know how excited I was to teach this topic in the spring in the classroom. So I really want to revisit that because when I was a fourth grade student, that was one of my favorite things to learn about California history. And I think it's also a really cool chance to talk about different perspectives of different groups of people that you may not think of when you think of the California Gold Rush. So, I want you to think about that quote that I said. We cannot create what we cannot imagine. So what that means is if you think about athletes, they imagine that basketball going into the hoop before they even shoot the ball. Or architects who, before they even design a house or build the house, they design the whole thing on paper. They think about the dimensions of the rooms and how all those parts are going to fit together way before anyone even buys the materials and starts construction. So, I want you to think about today what a topic you're going to choose. You should have be finishing your proposal tonight and deciding which topic. So remember, if you're a little unsure of what to do or you're feeling nervous, go ahead with Gold Rush because that's what me and Ms. Sherman will be modeling as we go throughout this workshop. So today, I want you to know that writers imagine the text they are going to make before they get started. And they do this by, first, imagining the parts and the whole, and two, think about the work for each part. So, let's get started as I show you how to do this work. Hey, okay. Oh, and I just want to say I'm teaching outside because my husband is working inside and has a meeting, so struggles of a small space. So if you occasionally hear geese in the background, that's why. So even as a teacher, if I'm writing something that's informational or curriculum or lesson, I need to see an example. And you guys already know about the importance of mentor texts. So I'm going to be sharing a student example in just a second. And it's also important to remember that you're not going to be able to put everything you can or every piece of information about your topics. You're going to need to make some choices. Okay, so I want you to watch me as we read Naomi's book together, and I want you to help me imagine by noticing how did the writer probably go about writing that? And it's really helpful to look at each part and asking a specific question of that part. All right, so I'm going to share my screen so you can see the text here. Okay, so the first question that you're going to ask as I read this is, what do I notice about this part and what kind of writing is it? So I notice right away, let me move this over so you can see it better, that says the Continental Army and the Battles of Lexington and Concord by Naomi. So this is the title of the book. But then I'm noticing that chapter 1 says all about the American Revolution. So let's read it together. In order to understand about the battles of Lexington and Concord, it is helpful to understand a little bit about the Revolutionary War. Someone's trying to hop into my Zoom because these were the first battles in that important war. So right away that I'm noticing is that she's telling us all about the Revolutionary War. So she's introducing the broader context of her topic. So it's really important because she's giving us an overview of the bigger picture so that we can understand this one small part, the Continental Army and the Battles of Lexington, that she'll discuss in more detail in her book later on. So normally I would give you a copy of this story. I will post on Google Classroom, but if I was in a real mini lesson, I would have you look at this document with your writing partner and see what things you can notice. So since we're doing this over virtual learning, I'm going to model what this might look like in the classroom. So as I'm looking through, I'm noticing right away that there's chapter 1, all about the American Revolution, chapter 2, all about the battles of Lexington and Concord. And then even within chapter 2, there's like even more subsections. So the secret plan, Lexington, Concord. So each paragraph or section is focusing on a different battle. And then chapter 3 goes into the day in the life of a Minuteman. So it's a story. So I'm noticing a date here. It says it was 5 a.m. I sat up in my bed with my wooden hunting musket by my side. So this is going in, like, this is like a zooming in even more and almost written in the style of like a journal entry or a mini story, which we know can be used as a piece of evidence. So it's really cool to think about things we already know from previous units, like opinion, and how that can support us in this unit. And then chapter 4 talks about why the battles of Concord and Lexington were important. So it's like an essay style. So it looks like Naomi was kind of writing about the information, but trying to convince you why these battles were really important. Okay, so as I'm looking at this, I noticed that the first section, the first chapter up here was like an all about section, all about the Revolutionary War. And then it had headings like causes of the war. So that clues me in and tells me that I might need to take some notes about specific dates, important places, and people, okay? So on this next screen, I'm gonna show you really quickly what that might look like for California history. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen again to show you how I might come up with possible sections or topics for my book on the Gold Rush. So what I'm showing you right now is the Padlet that Ms. Sherman so generously created for us, and these are the resources that you should have been reading yesterday and today for Reader's Workshop. So since I'm doing the Gold Rush, I'm going to click the Gold Rush resources to kind of look at their subtitles to give me some ideas of what I could write about. Okay, so I'm seeing things like gold is found in California. That looks kind of like an overview. The 49ers, I remember like those were the people who came to like rush and find gold because it happened. All of the like bunch of people that started to come was around 1848 and 1849. So that's where the name came from. It looks like it talks about like what is it like panning for gold. These look like these were the different types of places in the area, so boom towns and ghost towns. If I click this resource, I see an overview. I see some maps. So there again, talks about life as a 49er. So this probably tells me it's going to give some details about what it was like for someone living during that time there. And then this last one about from the history. I'm going to open this in a new window. Okay, and this gives me some great contents. Okay, so I'm going to go over to my slideshow, and these are my possible parts of my Gold Rush book. So I'm thinking, like Naomi's book, I could do an all about the Gold Rush, where I really just kind of introduce my topic. I really like writing about the 49ers. How you write that, 49ers, so people who panned for gold. I'm just going to do that as a reminder to myself. I could talk about like how to pan for gold. I could talk about maybe like the communities, because it talked about boom towns and ghost towns, like communities during the gold rush. And something that I didn't necessarily see in my very quick skimming, but something that I started to learn about as I got older was thinking about the different groups of people who came during the gold rush. So typically a lot of the photos you see of are like white males, but a lot of people don't know that there was actually sorry, I'm typing as I'm thinking. There was women who actually came to pan for gold who were wanting to make a different lifestyle for themselves. There was also Chinese immigrants became like a big influence there, and this actually got them into helping into doing other things like building the railroad, and there was like some tension with immigration laws during that time. And so I'd really like to like do a chapter possibly like focusing on people that you don't typically think of when thinking about the California Gold Rush. So I know that you guys aren't really writing your stories yet, but if you want to start thinking about, if you've chosen your topic by tonight, like start thinking about the parts that you might want to include in your book. And then tomorrow's lesson, we will talk about how we can start to take notes from those resources to help you get started. So the last thing I want to say before I end this lesson is to remember our teaching point that writers imagine the text they are going to make before they get started. And we can do that by imagining parts of the whole, which I did through Naomi's text and then my example of the gold rush, and then think about the work for each part. So as I was writing down those subsections, I realized like, hey, I might need to like research some important dates or some important people. So as you guys are getting ready to take notes for tomorrow, I know that you guys don't have your normal writer's workshop books from the class. I don't have my own copy either. So just use whatever around the house, whatever things you have around the house that work for you. If you have like just a plain empty notebook laying around that you could use that. If you have just scratch paper, use that. If you want to do everything online, so it's all like in a Google Doc, so it saves automatically, you can do that. Do whatever works for you. I do recommend if you do have paper, like loose leaf paper, to try to keep it together, either like in a folder or a paper clip or something that you can make sure to keep everything together, and make sure you date everything so that you can kind of keep track of what you did first. All right, so I will include the student examples and some other visual reminders to help you get started with this unit. And we'll come back tomorrow to learn how to take notes. Thanks, guys.